A millionaire's daughter lay in a coma for days. Doctors gave up. Specialists were flown in from across the world. Nothing worked. Then a barefoot black boy walked into the hospital and whispered 5 words that shocked everyone. "I can wake her up." The millionaire laughed at first, but what happened next changed everything. This is not just a story. It's a miracle. And you won't believe how it ends. Before we go back, let us know where you're watching from and subscribe because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. They still whisper about the night a barefoot boy walked into the richest hospital in the city and said he could wake a child no doctor could reach. Whisper, because no one can fully explain it. Whisper, because what happened afterward left people questioning everything they believed about science, spirit, and the quiet power of the human heart. At the center of this story lies a little girl named Ava Martin, 9 years old, cheeks once bright with curiosity, now resting pale and still beneath white sheets that seemed to swallow her small frame whole. Machines measured her heartbeat, technology sustained her lungs, but nothing reached the world inside her mind. She had been asleep for weeks. Breathing, yet unreachable. Alive, yet gone. Her father, William Martin, a man whose hands were rough from lifting steel and concrete, visited every day and every night. He sat beside her bed long after the nurses changed shifts, long after even hope had started to thin like worn-out thread. He whispered her name sometimes, though not as often as he wished. Grief takes words away from men more often than pain does. And William, he carried years of words he never said. Doctors called meetings. Specialists flew in. A billionaire philanthropist funded experimental treatments. But Ava remained silent, untouched by brilliance, unbothered by money. Then, just past midnight on the 22nd day, the world shifted. A boy appeared at William's side as though he had been there all along. No shoes. No family. Skin the color of river soil, face too young to carry eyes that old. He looked toward the ICU room where Ava lay and spoke in a voice calm enough to break a grown man's composure. He said a sentence no one else dared to speak. "I can wake her." At first, William said nothing. He simply stared at the boy, this barefoot stranger who seemed carved out of wind and uncertainty. The fluorescent hallway lights cast long shadows across the polished tiles, stretching and bending like time itself was eavesdropping. William's throat tightened, not out of fear, but recognition. He recognized something he couldn't name, something tender, fragile, impossible. The boy did not ask for permission to walk. He simply moved, quiet as a memory, toward Ava's room. William followed. The door opened with a sigh as if the room exhaled after holding its breath too long. Inside, Ava lay beneath the low hum of oxygen. The steady tick of her heart monitor filled the space like a tired metronome, slow and unchanging. Her hair, once wild with braids and ribbons, now rested still across the pillow, soft as forgotten dreams. Her small hand lay open beside her, palm lifted gently toward the ceiling, as though she reached for something even in sleep. William sat where he always sat, chair angled toward her, worn cushion shaped by weeks of his weight. He kept a picture in his back pocket, folded and unfolded until the edges frayed. It showed Ava laughing with a missing front tooth, flour dusting her cheeks from the cupcakes they'd baked together months before everything went wrong. He would take it out sometimes, but lately he found himself afraid to look. Afraid of remembering too much, feeling too deeply. Hope, when stretched thin, can cut like wire. For days, specialists hovered like anxious ghosts. They studied pages of charts, brain scans glowing blue and gray, lines of data no parent should have to interpret. Devin Ledwell, billionaire philanthropist with ivory cufflinks and a voice that rolled like authority, had funded nearly every treatment possible: neural stimulation, experimental drugs, immersive VR therapies that once revived soldiers from trauma-induced comas. Yet nothing reached Ava. Devin had power. William had love. But neither had answers. Nurses came with polite eyes and rehearsed sympathy. Doctors spoke carefully, always circling the same bleak truth. "She's stable," they said. "Her brain is quiet. We don't know when, if, she'll wake." William listened. nodded, carried their words like stones in his chest. But every night he remained, whispering fragments of stories she once loved, fairy tales about wolves and moonlit gardens, hoping, somehow, she heard him. But the boy, Jeremiah, he would later learn, stood at her bedside differently. Not with fear. Not with resignation. With certainty. He touched the blanket near her foot, not her skin, never her skin, lightly, respectfully, as though he knew the distance between worlds and how easily it could crumble. "She's trying to come home," he murmured. William frowned, voice low and rough like gravel under tires. "Home? She's here." The boy shook his head, slow and knowing. "She's between places," he whispered. "Places where voices matter more than machines. She's waiting for someone to speak the truth to her, not the facts." William scoffed before he could stop himself. The sound came out sharp, tired. "Truth? What truth would wake my daughter that medicine can't?" The boy did not look at him, only at Ava, still as snowfall, breathing like a secret held too long. "Your truth," Jeremiah said. "The one you've been swallowing for years. She's calling for it." William's heart stumbled in his chest. Because somewhere in him, beneath the scaffolding of grief and guilt, he knew there were words he'd never spoken, fears he'd buried, love he'd rationed like something fragile. Outside the room, the hospital night continued, nurses exchanging charts, wheels of cleaning carts murmuring down the corridor. Life moved in its rhythm. But inside that small room, time tightened around two souls, a broken father and a mysterious boy who spoke like someone twice his age. William sat forward, elbows heavy on his knees. "What do you want from me?" he asked. The boy blinked once, slowly, as if the answer lived inside silence itself. "Not from you," he said. "For her." And with those words, something unseen shifted. William felt it, not in the air, but deeper, like a door inside him unlocked a fraction of an inch. The world outside went unaware. But inside that room, the story had already begun. The boy finally turned to William, eyes calm in a way no child's eyes should be. They held a depth that suggested he had seen suffering and wonder from angles adults rarely face. William felt unnerved, as though he were standing in the presence of something holy or dangerous, or both. "My name is Jeremiah," the boy said. "No last name. No explanation." William cleared his throat, the words catching like splinters. "Why are you here? How did you even get into this room?" Jeremiah only lifted a shoulder, almost a shrug but not quite. "I come where I'm needed." It wasn't an answer, not one that made sense. But William found himself unable to argue. His voice softened, worn by nights of begging the universe for something, anything. "If you think you can help her, tell me how." Jeremiah stepped closer to Ava's bed. His bare feet made no sound on the linoleum floor, as if gravity held him differently. William watched closely, waiting for something absurd to happen, a flash of light, a tremor through the machines, but none came. Jeremiah merely looked down at Ava, as though her stillness was a language he understood. "She isn't lost," he murmured. "Just far away." William's jaw tensed. He had heard phrases like that from nurses trying to comfort grieving parents. But something about the way the boy said it, quiet, steady, without pity, made it feel different. "You don't need machines to call someone home," Jeremiah continued. "You need connection. You need truth." A bitter sound escaped William, half laugh, half wound. "Truth doesn't fix brain function. Information does. Treatment does." Jeremiah finally met his eyes. "Why hasn't it worked then?" The question hit harder than any blow. William looked at Ava, still, pale, unreachable, and felt the weight of those weeks, of medical bills, of hope stretched thin. He had done everything right. Every expert. Every resource. Every prayer whispered into empty space. And still, she slept. Jeremiah's voice softened like dusk settling into quiet streets. "There is a door between her and this world. You cannot break it down with force. You must knock softly." Sing gently. Call her by the father she remembers before worry changed your voice. William inhaled sharply. He hadn't sung in years. Not since Ava's mother left. Not since responsibility replaced music in his bones. And somehow, the boy knew. William stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor. Who told you that? You don't know me. You don't know anything about my family. Jeremiah remained still, unbothered. But she does, he whispered, nodding toward Ava. She's waiting for the sound of your heart, not your anger. Your memories, not your regret. William's anger dissolved into fear, the kind that comes when truth lands too close to home. He wanted to demand answers, wanted to call a nurse, wanted to chase the boy out. Instead, he whispered, "What do you want me to do?" Jeremiah stepped back toward the wall, fading into shadow like something temporary, borrowed from another place. He spoke quietly, barely more than a breath. "Come back tomorrow. Bring your voice. Bring the song you've hidden." And before William could respond, before he could ask how the boy knew about that song, the hallway lights flickered. A nurse rounded the corner, clipboard in hand. When she entered the room, Jeremiah was gone. No footsteps. No parting words. No proof he'd ever been there at all. William scanned the room, pulse racing. Only Ava slept quietly, machines pulsing beside her. The inciting moment had come. Everything that followed would defy explanation. William did not sleep that night. He sat in the hospital stairwell with his elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly the knuckles whitened. He tried to reason, tried to rationalize. A strange child slips into the ICU without clearance, claims he can wake a girl no one else can reach. Any sane father would alert security, demand answers, chase him out. But William didn't. He couldn't. Because beneath fear, beneath disbelief, something else stirred. A memory. A melody. A song he had buried. When dawn crept pale through the hospital windows, William returned to Ava's room. He did not expect Jeremiah to arrive. He did not even know if he wanted him to. Yet he sat there, hands trembling, throat tight, staring at the tiny rise and fall of Ava's chest. The lullaby came to him in fragments. His grandmother's voice, warm, worn, full of strength, singing to him in a small house that smelled like cinnamon and rain-soaked wood. She used to hum it on storm nights when thunder shook the windows. Young William would press himself to her side, afraid lightning would split the sky in half. But her voice steadied him. Soft. Patient. Sure. There's light in the shadows and stars in the rain. He spoke the first line aloud. Ava did not move. But the words tasted like truth in his mouth. He whispered the second verse quietly, like testing whether his voice could carry memory without breaking. Hold on, little dreamer. You'll fly once again. The song settled into the quiet. A heartbeat later, the monitor beeped once, sharp, unexpected. William froze. The sound returned to its steady pattern, unchanged. But for a moment, just a breath-sized moment, he felt something shift the way a breeze changes direction before a storm. Still, doubt crept in harsh and heavy. This was foolish. Magical thinking. Desperation wearing hope like borrowed clothing. By afternoon, doctors updated him again, no progress, no change, no end in sight. Devin Ledwell visited briefly, polished confidence in every word. He spoke of funding new trials, advanced neural interface models, specialists in Zurich. He promised results. Promised control. Promised the future. But none of his promises felt like warmth. None sounded like song. When Devin left, William's shoulders sagged beneath the weight of choice. He pressed his palm to Ava's hand. It was small, too small for the world she might never return to. His eyes burned, tears refusing to fall. That boy. I don't know who he is, William murmured. But he said you were waiting. Waiting for me. For the truth I never gave you. He leaned in, breath unsteady. His voice cracked like thin ice beneath heavy footsteps. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry I wasn't there enough. I'm sorry I worked late. I'm sorry I missed your school play and your Sunday competitions and every little moment that mattered to you." The words felt like stones turned to softness as he spoke them. "I was scared," he whispered. "Scared to be enough for you. Scared to love you too deeply because I didn't know if I could protect you." His confession hung in the room like incense, heavy, healing, undeniable. And then, soft footsteps behind him. William turned. Jeremiah stood in the doorway. Barefoot. Dust on his ankles. The same calm eyes from the night before. "You spoke the edge of it," Jeremiah said kindly. "Now speak the center." William swallowed, voice hoarse. "The center?" Jeremiah stepped closer, stopping beside him. "The place where love becomes vulnerable. Where truth stops being comfortable and starts being real." He nodded toward Ava as if she were listening, as if she were waking through layers of silence. "She needs to hear you without armor," he said. "Your voice without the years that dulled it." William stared at his daughter, heart fractured and bare. Could words reach where science could not? Could song reshape the space between worlds? His voice trembled into the room, soft, broken, reaching. "There's light in the shadows and stars in the rain." Jeremiah closed his eyes, as if feeling every note. Again, he murmured, "Let it come from truth." And William sang, quietly, imperfectly, honestly. The lullaby returned like it had waited decades to be heard. It was only the beginning. The next morning, William returned to Ava's room before the hospital corridors had fully awakened. The fluorescent lights glared overhead, the hum of the machines a constant reminder of how fragile her small body was. But Jeremiah was gone. Not just out of sight, gone. No chair disturbed, no sound of his bare feet leaving. He had vanished as quietly as he had appeared, leaving William alone with the quiet, the tubes, and the steady beep of her heart monitor. William ran a hand through his hair, frustration and fear pressing together in a tight knot. He opened the book Jeremiah had suggested, the pages full of stories Ava had loved as a toddler, stories she knew by heart. He began to read aloud, voice shaking at first, then growing steadier as he tried to summon the warmth of the moments they once shared. Once upon a time, his words spilled into the room, carrying all the hope he had left. But nothing happened. No flutter of her eyelids. No twitch of her tiny fingers. Only the machine's steady, indifferent rhythm. Hours passed. Nurses came and went, offering polite smiles that William could barely return. The doctors entered, clipboard in hand, faces set with the kind of resolve that comes from knowing when to give up. "Mr. Martin," one said gently, "she's stable. But she's not waking. You need to accept reality." Continuing to read, "It's not helping her brain respond." William's chest tightened. I can't just give up," he said, voice rough and trembling. "I can't leave her like this." The doctors exchanged glances. "You've done everything possible. She's alive. That's what we can promise." But William couldn't hear them. He was trapped between grief and desperation, between the logic of the world and the impossible suggestion of a barefoot boy who had promised him a miracle. He slumped in the chair beside Ava's bed, tears rolling silently down his cheeks. Memories pressed in, birthdays missed, bedtime stories left unfinished, the times he had chosen work over her small hands. And then he remembered the lullaby his grandmother used to sing to him, words that had once lit a shadowed room with comfort. Words he hadn't sung in years. "There's light in the shadows and stars in the rain," he whispered. His voice cracked on the next line. "Hold on, little dreamer. You'll fly once again." The monitor's steady beep skipped once. Then twice. William froze. He blinked at the line of numbers and waves, disbelief clawing at him. Was it real? A faint flutter of Ava's eyelid. Then her fingers twitched. The room held its breath. Nurses glanced up, skeptical, cautious, uncertain what to do. William's tears fell freely now, his voice shaking as he sang the lullaby again, louder, full of all the love, all the guilt, all the hope he had carried for weeks. And as he sang, Jeremiah appeared, silent, in the doorway, just for a moment. Bare feet on the polished tile. Watching. Nodding. Then he was gone again, leaving no trace, unseen by cameras, unnoticed by anyone but William. When Ava's chest rose more steadily and her fingers clutched the blanket lightly, William whispered to Jeremiah, though he was no longer there, "Did you see that? She's waking. She's coming back." No answer. Only the echo of hope in the room, a presence that lingered even in absence. The boy had left a message in silence and guidance in patience. William had followed it. And for the first time in what felt like forever, he felt the fragile, breathtaking weight of a miracle forming before his eyes. William didn't sleep that night. He stayed by Ava's bedside, his voice raw from singing, fingers laced through her small hand as if letting go might pull her back into the silence he feared. The heart monitor still pulsed, faint, but present, and every rise and fall of her breath felt like a fragile miracle unfolding. Morning light crept through the narrow hospital window, pale and cool. William leaned close and whispered her name again, softer this time, not demanding, just offering himself. "Ava, baby girl. I'm here." Her fingers twitched again, a purposeful movement now, not random. The nurses rushed in, uncertain but alert. One called for a doctor. Another adjusted oxygen flow. But all William could see was her hand tightening around his, tiny and warm and impossibly alive. Then, slowly, painfully, her eyelids fluttered. William stopped breathing. He felt the world narrow to that single moment, to the half-second when possibility became reality. Her eyes opened, unfocused at first, soft brown irises swimming through the light like someone waking from a 100-year sleep. She blinked once. Twice. Then the smallest voice, cracked, raspy, impossibly real, pushed its way from her throat. "Daddy." The word shattered him. It broke through every wall he had built around his heart. He bowed over her hand, shoulders trembling, tears falling freely, not the silent grief of the nights before, but relief, overwhelming, unrestrained. "Yes," he whispered, forehead pressed to her knuckles. "Daddy's here. I never left." Doctors filled the doorway, wide-eyed, unsure how to categorize what they were witnessing. They whispered about neurological anomalies, spontaneous arousal from coma, unexplained cortical response. But none of their words mattered. William only heard his daughter's breath, uneven, real, and the faint hum of her waking body finding its way back to the world. A shadow passed across the glass of the observation window, almost too brief to notice. Bare feet. A dusty coat. Jeremiah watching from outside the room. William lifted his head. Their eyes met, man and boy, miracle and doubt. Jeremiah smiled. Not a triumphant smile, not a proud one. A simple one, gentle, knowing, almost sorrowful. As if he had been waiting not for Ava to return, but for William to learn how to call her back himself. A single folded note appeared on the bedside table, no footsteps, no opening door, no explanation. Just paper. As if placed there by breath alone. William reached for it with shaking fingers. Ava watched, her eyes clearer now, searching his face as if remembering him in pieces and rebuilding a picture she once knew by heart. The note read. "Your voice brought her home. You're not finished yet." No signature. No name. Just truth. William looked up again, but Jeremiah was gone. Vanished like he had never stood there at all. The security cameras would later show an empty hallway, untouched air. Ava whispered again, stronger this time. "Daddy, sing it again." And with a breath that felt like prayer, like sunrise, like broken things made whole, he did. "There's light in the shadows and stars in the rain." This time, Ava's lips moved faintly with his, not fully singing, but remembering, joining, returning. The room felt warmer somehow, softer, filled with something unmeasurable, undeniable. The lullaby, once just memory, became bridge, lifeline, resurrection. And William realized the miracle was never just in the boy. It was in the voice he had been too afraid to use. In the days that followed, the hospital became a place of hushed awe. Doctors reviewed charts, reran scans, compared notes with furrowed brows. They spoke of spontaneous cortical recovery, of unexplained neural reactivation, phrases meant to cage the unexplainable in scientific language. But their eyes betrayed them. They had seen something they could not quantify. Ava remained fragile, but awake. She moved slow, spoke soft, as if relearning the world with careful steps. Yet every time William entered the room, she reached for him instinctively, a reflex of safety, memory, belonging. And each night, he sang to her again, the lullaby that had bridged the darkness. There's light in the shadows and stars in the rain. Hold on, little dreamer. You'll fly once again. Her voice returned by degrees. First a hum, then a whisper, then finally, after nearly a week, she sang one full line with him. Nurses paused in the hallway, listening. Some cried quietly. Some smiled like they were watching sunlight climb over a long horizon. And though William searched, Jeremiah did not return. Not physically. Not in the way one might expect. His absence became its own presence, a reminder that miracles rarely linger in plain sight. But William kept the note tucked in his wallet, edges softening from being held too often. Your voice brought her home. You're not finished yet. When the hospital finally discharged Ava, William stood outside the sliding glass doors with her small hand wrapped in his. The world looked different, not louder or brighter, but truer. He saw families passing, children laughing, people grieving quietly in corners, and he felt connected to all of it. As if the veil between hearts had thinned. He resigned from his construction job 2 months later. Not out of bitterness. Not from exhaustion. But because he knew what his voice, and his story, could mean to others. He sold his truck, pawned tools he once thought he'd die owning, and rented a small, forgotten building near the waterfront. He called it Voices at Shore, a place where children carrying trauma could come to speak, sing, paint, or simply exist without being invisible. The first child arrived timidly, a thin girl whose brother had died in her arms. Then came a boy who hadn't spoken since the night his home burned down. Then more. William didn't heal them, he simply offered space, offered listening, offered voice. And every evening, when the room was empty and the tide breathed against the docks, William sat with Ava beside him, both humming that same lullaby, a reminder that broken things don't simply mend. They transform. Jeremiah never returned to the center. But sometimes, when William locked up late, footsteps like soft bare skin echoed against the boards. And sometimes a folded slip of paper would appear under the door, blank or bearing only one line. You're not finished yet. The miracle had moved forward, not ending, only widening. Months became seasons. Ava grew stronger, her voice clearer, her laughter no longer fragile but bright, unashamed, whole. William watched her chase sunlight down the shoreline, hair wild in the wind, humming the lullaby now as naturally as breathing. And every time she reached the line, "You'll fly once again," she looked up at the open sky as if she'd already begun. People came from all over, families, doctors, skeptics, believers, all wanting to see the girl who woke from silence through a song. They asked for explanations. They searched for logic. Some whispered about miracles, others about neural coincidence. But the truth, William realized, was not in the facts. It was in the return. In the voice that crossed darkness. In the boy who vanished like a breeze through an open door. One evening, as summer softened into dusk, Ava tugged at William's sleeve. "Daddy," she asked, eyes wide like they held more universe than child. "Do you think he'll help other people too? Like he helped us?" William thought of the papers slipped under doors, the echo of bare feet, the silence that felt like presence more than absence. He thought of the children in Voices at Shore, each one wrestling their own kind of shadow, each one learning that voice, not perfection, was the bridge back to light. "I think he already is," William replied. Ava smiled, not because she understood completely, but because she believed. And belief, William realized, was its own kind of waking. Later that year, Ava stood on a small stage at the community center's first showcase, her voice steady, soft, then strong enough to shake the dust from corners no one had noticed were dark. She sang the lullaby not as a plea, but as a promise. There's light in the shadows and stars in the rain. Hold on, little dreamer. You'll fly once again. As her final note lingered, William saw him, just for a heartbeat, standing at the back of the room. The same dusty coat. The same bare feet. Older somehow, or maybe younger. Timeless. Jeremiah watched with calm eyes, nodded once, and slipped out into the night before applause erupted. William did not chase him. Neither did Ava. Some miracles are meant to be witnessed, not captured. Years later, when voices at shore expanded across cities, when Ava became known for the way her songs healed places no medicine could reach, she often ended performances with a quiet message, one she never claimed as her own, but carried like a gift passed hand to hand across time. You're not lost. You're just not finished yet. And somewhere, in cities, in alleys, in hospital wings where machines hummed in lonely rhythm, a barefoot boy, smelling faintly of dust and bread, kept walking. Not to be understood. Not to be proven. But to remind the forgotten that even in the deepest silence, there is a road back, if someone calls their name. And every voice has power. Even the smallest. Even the broken. Especially the one that almost stopped speaking. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.